Welcome, night owls. You're tuned to Midnight FM, the hour where silence speaks louder than sound. Tonight, we're joined once again by someone you all know and love, a man whose stories seem to come from a place between memory and nightmare. Grandpa Joseph, it's always an honor to have you back on the show.
Well, Jacob, I reckon it's good to be back. You know, these old bones don't travel much anymore, but your studio's warmth and a cup of coffee, they make the memories come easier. Though I gotta warn you, the one I'm about to tell tonight, it's not a comfortable one.
Then we're in for a good one, I guess. So, night owls, settle in. Maybe dim the lights. Grandpa's got a story that begins high in the mountains, in a cabin painted red.
That's right, the Red Cabin. It was the winter of '56, I believe. Snow came early that year, thick, heavy, like someone had pulled a white sheet over the world. My younger brother, Henry, and I were driving up through the Smoky Mountains with a borrowed truck hauling supplies for a logging camp that never got built. The roads were nothing but slush and ice, and the radio had gone dead hours earlier. By late afternoon, the sky had turned that strange kind of gray where you can't tell if it's day or night. We were trying to make it to a ranger station before dark when the engine coughed once, twice, and died. No gas, no signal, no sound but the wind pushing snow against the windshield. We decided to walk. Didn't know where we were heading, just knew sitting there would get us killed. A few miles up the road, through the haze of snow, we saw it. A cabin standing alone in the woods. Red paint, dull and faded, but still visible against all that white. It looked abandoned, roof sagging, chimney dark, no tracks leading to or from it. But when we got closer, we saw the faintest trail of smoke coming from the chimney. Henry grinned and said, "Guess someone's home." I wasn't so sure. The front door was slightly open. A single lantern glowed inside, sitting on the table. The fire was low, but alive, and though it was warm inside, there was no one to be found. We called out. Nothing. Just the crackle of the fire and the sound of snow dripping off our coats. We should have left then. God knows we should have.
We stayed. You don't walk away from warmth when your fingers are stiff as fence posts and your boots are soaking through. Henry shut the door behind us, dropped his pack, and started rubbing his hands near the fire. I went to hang our coats on the wall and noticed something odd. There were already 2 coats hanging there, old ones, heavy wool, brown with age. Looked like they'd been there a while, but not that long. The dust around the hooks was disturbed, and the snow that had blown in through the door hadn't reached that far. Henry said, "Maybe hunters. Maybe they'll be back soon." I nodded. That thought didn't comfort me much. There were 2 chairs by the table, and 2 tin cups. One still had something frozen solid inside. The air smelled faintly of pine and smoke, and underneath that, something else, like damp earth and iron. We built the fire higher, then started searching for matches or candles. The cabin had just one room, a bed in the corner, A small table, a few shelves, and a narrow door that led to what I thought was a pantry. But when I opened it, it was just darkness. No shelves, no smell of food, just cold air that moved, like the space was breathing. Henry laughed, said I was spooking myself. Maybe he was right, but I closed that door anyway. We found some jerky in our packs, chewed on it while the fire hissed. Outside, the wind howled so bad the walls shook. Every few minutes, snow slid off the roof with a whoomp that made Henry jump. We joked a bit, tried to keep our spirits up. But sometime after midnight, things changed. I woke up to the sound of footsteps. Not outside, inside. Slow, dragging ones from that back door. I sat up, staring into the dark corner of the cabin. The fire was almost dead, just glowing coals. I could barely see Henry, curled up in his blanket. But there, right next to him, was a wet print on the floor. Barefoot. Another. Then another, coming from that door I'd shut. I whispered, "Henry," but he didn't move. The print stopped right by his side, then nothing. The silence was heavier than the snow outside. I couldn't even hear the wind anymore. Then I saw something. The faint outline of a hand against the wood, pale and long like frost crawling upward. It moved, pressed into the wood, like something was leaning there, listening. I couldn't scream, couldn't move. All I did was stare. And then, as quiet as it began, it slipped away, back toward the pantry door. The latch clicked shut by itself.
Henry woke up when the fire flared, coughing from the smoke. I didn't tell him what I'd seen. Didn't have to, because when the sun rose, there were 2 sets of wet footprints on the floor. Mine and someone else's. When daylight came, I wanted nothing more than to get out of that place. Henry was still half asleep when I said, "Pack up, we're leaving." He rubbed his eyes, looked around, and frowned. "Joe, where are our coats?" The wall was bare. The 2 old coats we'd seen last night, gone. In their place hung ours. But they weren't wet anymore. They were bone dry, warm to the touch, like someone had hung them near the fire all night. "Maybe you did that," Henry said. But I didn't remember touching them. I know I didn't. We opened the door expecting wind and snow. Instead, we found the world still. The kind of silence that doesn't belong to day. The sky was flat white. No sun, no shadows, and the tracks we'd made the night before? Gone. Not covered. Gone. I remember Henry stepping out, squinting into the woods. "Maybe it snowed over," he said. But the snow was untouched, not even a drift, just a blank, endless sheet leading back to the trees. We started walking anyway, following where the road should have been. After maybe half an hour, the cabin came into view again, behind us. I swear to you, we'd been walking straight downhill. We tried again, this time keeping to the tree line, using a compass. The needle spun. When we stopped to breathe, the wind came up sudden, and the sound of the cabin door creaking open echoed across the clearing. even though we'd left it shut. Henry wanted to keep moving. I didn't argue. But as we pushed on, the woods began to look wrong. Every few steps, I'd see something out of place, a stump where there hadn't been one, a tree leaning the other way. Once, I swear I saw our footprints ahead of us, already pressed into the snow. That's when Henry said, quiet, "Joe, I think it's following us." I wanted to tell him that's crazy, but I couldn't, because I'd just noticed something myself. The snow on his shoulder, it wasn't melting. It clung there like ash. We ran then. Didn't matter where, just away. The woods blurred, the air burning our lungs. The sound of footsteps behind us wasn't ours. Heavier, slower, dragging. When we burst through the clearing again, there it was. The red cabin, standing where it always had. Smoke from the chimney, steady and calm. Henry dropped to his knees, gasping. I couldn't breathe. My chest hurt from fear more than the cold.
I heard the door creak open. No one there, but the fire inside was burning bright again. Henry said, "We're gonna die out here if we don't go in." And he was right. That's the worst part. He was right. We stepped inside again. The air was warm, too warm, like someone had been waiting for us. 2 cups sat on the table, steam rising. Our coats hung on the wall, dripping with fresh snow. Henry started crying, not loud, just shaking, his breath breaking. I didn't say anything. I just sat down by the fire and stared into the flames. And that's when I noticed something burning in the coals. A photograph. Blackened, curling at the edges, but clear enough to see. 2 men standing by a cabin in the snow. One of them was me. The other was Henry. I pulled that photo from the coals. My fingers burned, but I didn't care. The faces were ours. The same truck, the same coats, the same slope of trees behind us. But there was one more thing. A third shadow, standing just behind us. Tall, thin, head tilted. Henry saw it too. He didn't say a word, just backed away from the fire until his boots hit the door. I wanted to leave right then, but outside the window, something was moving, slowly, back and forth. The snow wasn't falling anymore. It was rising, like the wind was blowing upward instead of down. Henry whispered, "Joe, there's someone out there." But when I looked, there wasn't. Just that same gray-white nothing. Then came the knock. 3 slow taps on the door. Knock, knock, knock. Henry froze. The sound echoed like it had come from inside the walls. Then again, softer this time, but closer. The lantern on the table flickered, and the flame in the hearth bent sideways, like it was being pulled. I grabbed Henry's arm. "Don't open it!" He nodded, tears on his cheeks, but the handle turned anyway, on its own. The door swung open, and the cold came in like a living thing. Snow blew across the floor. The lantern went out. In the firelight, we saw them, 2 shapes
standing in the doorway. They looked like men, but not anymore. Their skin was white and thin like paper, stretched tight over bone. Their eyes were hollow, dark pits that swallowed the firelight, and they were smiling, lips cracked, teeth black. One of them stepped forward, and the floor creaked under its weight. It raised a hand, not to grab, but to wave, like greeting an old friend. Henry screamed, "I didn't! I couldn't!" The sound that came out of them wasn't speech, just wind whistling through empty lungs. Then, as quick as a blink, the fire went out, and everything went dark. When I came to, I was outside, lying face down in the snow. The sun was coming up. The cabin was gone. No footprints, no smoke, nothing but the trees. Henry was gone too. I searched for hours, called his name until my throat bled, but there was no answer. Only once did I think I heard him, a faint whisper carried by the wind. It sounded like, "Go back inside." A ranger found me a day later, wandering down the old trail. He said there hadn't been any cabin up there for 20 years. Showed me a photo from some fire in '36, a red cabin that burned to the ground with 2 hunters still inside. When I asked what their names were, he said he didn't know. The records were lost. I still dream about that night, Jacob. Sometimes I wake up and smell smoke, and sometimes when it's cooled enough, I see a second set of footprints leading to my porch, but never away.
That was Grandpa Joseph and the Red Cabin. Maybe some stories aren't warnings. Maybe they're reminders of what the cold can take and what refuses to let go. Thank you, Grandpa, for sharing that memory with us. And to you, night owls, if you ever find shelter in a storm, and the fire's already burning when you arrive, don't ask who lit it. Just keep walking. You're listening to Midnight FM. Good night, and stay warm out there.